I had this whole plan when Dennis and I talked about this show last year, a whole different plan for this show that I had imagined. And then I went to residency and I was like, great, I'll just like put that plan on hold. And when I got to residency and I got to talking to my mom, I was like, they were leaving on a trip abroad for a couple months. And I was like, I need you to send me these photos before you leave on the trip. Like, I'm in North Carolina. I need these photos. I feel moved to work with them. And I started paying attention to these environments and these spaces that surround you as a kid before you are able to like retain memory, like 0 to 5 years, right? You don't really have a lot of recollection of that. And I started seeing these repetitive environments, curtains that kept coming up, chairs, very specific markers of time, of the mid-'80s, of the early '90s, certain markers of time that you don't really see anymore, of course. And thinking about how I was relaying my memory of these younger years to this 2 sets of albums, and thinking about how now, like, kids have 2 terabytes of storage from their, like, what is that actually in your memory, and in like this, like, what can you hold on to, and what does the body hold on to, and what does the mind hold on to? I think that I processed so much looking at this like set of, I think my parents were able to send me like 40 photos or something over email. And I just kept poring over them over and over and over, and realizing that I had a bodily memory of this place, but not a visual memory of this place. And then is there like a hierarchy to that? I don't know. I don't know. So these are all the things that I was ruminating on while creating pieces of an environment from the materials that I've been working from for the past 6 years now, which are these like yoga mats and saris that are a lot of my mother's saris also. And that's kind of where the impetus of this work started. And then about a month into the residency, I was like, I have to scrap that whole other plan, because that other plan is not gonna, that work does not want to be made right now. This other work has to be made right now. So what you're seeing and experiencing, I hope, and what you are in space with, is me processing that set of photos and kind of playing with connecting a lot of dots, a lot of like internal fibers, I think, in my mind and body that have never come together in my creative practice, that I then realized, I think 40 is a good year to do that. From January to the night before Dennis came and picked up the work. So Tuesday, and gave him all of these parts, none of which I had a plan for. My install crew, love you, Olivia, also fellow artist extraordinaire, who I hired out for the week and for the previous couple weeks leading up to this to help me make the work for this show. We drove out and have spent kind of the last 48-ish hours in the space with the work, seeing where it wanted to be placed. These are not decisions that are planned. Like, my intuition usually leads my creative decisions, and I have been told that that is good for my human design, to make decisions with my gut. And so that's what I do. I was visited by this owl in North Carolina, outside the studio window. And I've never seen an owl like that. And I feel like owls are signifiers of time and wisdom and other great things in cross-culturally. And so I knew that the owl had to make an appearance. So about 6 years ago, I started, through my own interests and relationship with my body and my rituals and routines in relationship to my body, I started to kind of hone in on this yoga industrial complex in the West, we'll say, because of the way that it was drastically different than my experience with yoga growing up in India. And so I made a show that involved a performance piece using a ton of mats from the community. And then a few months later, we had COVID. And so COVID brought upon this trifecta of things that happened time-wise. Like, I had all these yoga mats. I wanted to return to painting. I had saris collected. It was kind of, I wanted to get back into portraiture. I'm interested in how culture gets commodified and like co-opted through like my experience growing up in like the 80s and 90s, and like in like straddling this duality of cultures. And so the yoga mat kind of became a substrate in which I could carry like this loaded content that I was like, as I was going to yoga studios and classes, not seeing myself and not really feeling comfortable like in these spaces, and feeling like it was so different than how I practiced yoga before. I kind of was like, okay, well, this is a great space for me to maybe make brown bodies appear in yoga mats, right, in the yoga sphere. And because it was COVID, I didn't have access to other people's bodies. And so I was like, well, I might as well use my own. And so it became an exploration of the body through this bodily material. And then when I was layering kind of the saris that I'd collected from my mom for over a decade, that became another added layer of like lineage and like matrilineal lineage, as in incorporating her body in a way, the things she wore, the things I also sometimes wore into these works. And then the fabric kind of in other work, it's weird because it's like this work has grown from that a lot, but like the fabric represented also just like many things, like a signifier of difference that is worn on the skin. And then also like pattern and culture and the fabrics. I love pattern and color play. That's kind of, I think that I've just absorbed that culturally growing up. And so it's just like a fun place to play. Sometimes it's the mat first, sometimes it's the figure first, but like I just have a hoarded amount of mats and a hoarded amount of fabrics and then a hoarded amount of visual documentation that they find their matches and their pairs on their own. And it's like I don't really force it. And that part is the fun part too, that I don't have to plan. The show reads left to right. You have like some clear indicators of spaces of like domesticity and these objects that are like dated looking, and then there is like also a progression of the age of the figure a little bit. The title specifically can be read a couple different ways, right? I think I was at I was taking a break after a long studio day in Charlotte, and I was like on the phone, and I said, about time. And then all of a sudden, I was like venting about something, and I said, oh, that's the title of the show. Like I've been for days trying to answer Dennis's like title for the show question. I'm like, it just hasn't come to me yet. Like I just really, and it was so simple because it's also so straightforward. Like this show is about time in so many different ways. And I felt like it was about time that I reconciled this for myself in my body and in the work. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with two anecdotes that actually I just learned from my parents. That birthday is my fourth birthday recreated. That was the first birthday I had in the States. It was my first birthday cake that I actually remember that birthday cake. And my dad pointed out to me that the clock says like 4 o'clock. And I didn't know that it was my fourth birthday. I just recreated the clock that was in the photo, and it said 4 o'clock. And that magical moment just happened. Those are like the banners that were in the photo as well. The biscuits became the floor. Parley G biscuits. Please help yourself to a pack of Parley G's. I grew up eating these biscuits, and they're very synonymous for me as like a nostalgic feeling of childhood, and they used to not be as readily available when I was a kid, so it was something I sought to eat when I was in India, when I was visiting India. Now you can get them at Walmart. That's wild. But instead of doing that, I would find your local Indian's grocery store and support, because you'll get a way better deal. As y'all know, I have like cases of them in the back. So help yourself. And I changed the Parley G to Parley P, because obviously. And it is an ongoing project, but that is a start of kind of this flooring formation. The title wall has an image of me holding an I love you balloon. And so when I got these photos, my parents then went abroad, and I couldn't really, because of time change, be in touch when someone's abroad. So they were gone for 2 months. So I made all this work looking at these photos without being able to ask them questions about the photos. And so I was like, they're like, where is this balloon from? I was like, I'm sure it's like a birthday or like a Valentine's Day. It looks like Valentine's Day balloon. And today, my dad told me that was when we first came to the States in Philly. That was the balloon that he got to welcome me and my mom to this country. And I had no idea. I learned that right now, about 30 minutes ago, and I hope you guys all cry too, because I did too, and that's why I cried at the beginning of this talk.